All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 46 of the Yellow Card Podcast, presented to you by Couch Guy Sports and brought to you by Exo Gun. With you, as always, your host, Diego Galvis, joined by Chris Jones, Andrew Fasciano. It is a beautiful Sunday morning here in Boston, fellas. How are we doing?
Hopping off the lug. How are you?
Yeah, we're hanging in there.
Yeah, no, we've had some strange stuff going on in the air and our atmosphere. I mean, just 2 weeks ago we were smoked up by the West Coast fires happening, and now we got all this pollen. One day it rains, one day it's super sunny. Just can't seem to get it all together, so it's messing with everyone's health. But remember, take care of yourself. If you're out there, get yourself vaccinated already. Just get yourself vaccinated. Let's get out of this pandemic and let's enjoy some beautiful football. Speaking of football, we got a heavy loaded episode this week as major breaking news happening in the world of soccer that has shaken the core of the beautiful game in itself. Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona. We're going to start off with this conversation right now. Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona due to financial troubles that Barcelona is dealing with. Unfortunately, the contract could not get worked up. A lot of reactions are happening. Which one of you guys wants to go first?
Andrew.
All right.
Andrew. All right, perfect.
I mean, I think without a doubt, it's one of the biggest football/soccer stories in recent memory. When you have a player who is ranked among the all-time greats, who has done so much for one club for so long, just leaving all of a sudden. I mean, there had been speculation dating back a couple years, I guess, at this point, that Messi maybe wanted out, but it always seemed like things got resolved and it was more of a negotiation tactic. And it seemed like they were on the same page. And I think that's what both the club and Messi have said at this point, is that they both wanted to get this deal done. But unfortunately, because of the wage bill salary cap that La Liga has implemented, it wasn't financially possible to get it done. And in some ways, I think it's a real shame, because a player as great as Messi shouldn't really have his fate taken out of his hands like that, I think. But on the other hand, I think it's sort of a reminder of two things, in my opinion. First off, some of the contracts Barcelona have signed in recent years have just been absolutely horrific, and they're paying the price for that right now. And then number two, I think it's a part of a larger trend that's sort of showing everyone just how financially unstable modern football is right now, I think. I mean, if you look at what's happening in La Liga with Barcelona, if you look at Inter Milan as well, I think is a prime example, having won the title just last season and now having to sell pretty much anyone they can get an offer on because they're in so much financial trouble. I'm sure the pandemic has contributed to it to at least some degree, but I think it's kind of it's a cycle of all this crazy amount of money that's being pumped into the business, and it seemed like it wasn't very sustainable. And I think we're starting to see some clubs who have been at the forefront start to pay the price for that right now.
You know, I definitely agree. I just think that their main focus this in this summer transfer window was to get Memphis Depay to play alongside Lionel Messi. They pay for Memphis Depay, and then you get Messi to quote unquote take a 50% pay cut in his weekly wage for a 5-year deal to stay with his boyhood club. Mm-hmm. And they also brought in Sergio Aguero as well. So they have some talent still up front, but they have guys that they're paying way too much money. For starters, they're still paying Felipe Coutinho. Move him on. They're already looking to move on from Miralem Pjanic, who they did their transfer swap for Arthur as well. They're still paying. They're paying Ousmane Dembele a huge contract. I believe he got hurt in the Euros, so he's still out. You still got Ansu Fati, that's this young up and comer. still recovering from his injury as well. You also have Antoine Griezmann, who you're paying, who just hasn't fit the bill that Ronald Koeman wants in his squad. And then also in the back end, if you look at it, you still got Sergio Busquets that's making money. You got Frankie de Jong that's making money. You have Samuel Umtiti. You have Jordi Alba. You have guys that are making some serious money here. And for them, it's just tough because obviously with the pandemic, every team is hitting differently. But Barcelona, to me, it's just all these moves they've made have kind of been for nothing, because now I feel like they're about to go down a real dark path. I think that we were excited for La Liga because out of Atletico, Real, and Barcelona, you didn't know which one was going to win this year. Now I think it's just down to Real Madrid and Atletico to win the La Liga, in my opinion.
All right. So now my turn. I got a mix of emotions with this. Number one is all these signings that you, Chris, just mentioned, as well as Andrew. It was desperational signings in the past 3 to 4 years by Barcelona, knowing damn well that this day was going to come. It was desperational moves to get to the top of the top, get as much as you could out of Lionel Messi, and then if worse came to worse, hope for the best when it came to renewal time. After a financial audit done by Barcelona and independent Barcelona contractors, it was clear that their financial situation was just not at the best. And that is exactly what happens when you make these aspirational contracts that just simply aren't going to work out. Signing Antoine Griezmann after just a few good seasons with Atletico, I think, was a bit of a desperate move. Signing Miralem Pjanic after a good season with Juventus, after not having proven himself further that he should belong at a club like Barcelona. It was just aspirational. Samuel Umtiti after a good World Cup performance, like you just signing him immediately. It was just a bunch of aspirational moves. But then we've noticed that this trend is happening a lot around the world too. We've noticed Real Madrid too is in the situation where they're having to sell players as well to create some funds. They just let go of Sergio Ramos. They let go of Rafael Varane, and they're now to their last straws of a generation that truly marked the best there was for the Spanish La Liga. It's down to Marcelo, it's down to Toni Kroos, and it's down to Luka Modric at this point right now. Also Karim Benzema, let's not forget about him. And then last but not least, I mean, it's a sad day for football. Honestly, it's a sad day for La Liga as well. The Clásicos are not going to be the same anymore, considering that you don't really have any additional players to look up to. As soon as Ronaldo left, it was already weird. And now just that Lionel Messi is gone, it's definitely even more of like, okay, it's just Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Because yeah, in one area you have Vinicius Jr. still developing, it's still a young core to develop. And in another one, you have Ansu Fati still developing, but it's not the same rivalry anymore. You don't have the components of Cristiano Ronaldo, Luka Modric, and Karim Benzema going head to head versus Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Suarez. It's not the same anymore. In terms of talent, it's not the same. It's all mediocre football that at this point is just not even. It's worth watching just for the development piece, but until a true rivalry develops, it's just no longer there. Yeah, you got Memphis Depay coming into Barcelona. That's great and all. The guy has developed himself, and he has proven himself that he belongs in this club. But after that, what else do you got forward to look up to, right? In addition, now it's kind of scary too, because then you look at other clubs around the world too. Borussia Dortmund having to let go of Jadon Sancho and trying their darnest to keep Erling Haaland. And so right now, Haaland is still a Borussia Dortmund player, but God forbid what happens this next couple of weeks. They still got a couple of weeks where things could happen, and Chelsea or whoever could just sign Erling Haaland. It's over for Dortmund. You're looking at Inter Milan as Andrew noted earlier. You're looking at Paris Saint-Germain too. Don't forget, yeah, they got they got a lot of money, but look at the talent that they also got, and look at the amount of money that they're paying for these people. You got about 5 to 6 different goalies still under contract with PSG that you still dishing out money to, who are not even playing for your team anymore. You got Alfonso Areola, who was playing for Fulham, I believe, last year. You got other soccer players who are just still out on loan, and you paying them that money. I get it. You want to create a powerhouse. You want to create an excellent club that everybody will fear. But at this point, you're not doing it in the smartest way possible. You're actually just wrecking things out for the game in itself. Lastly, I mean, what a career by Lionel Messi at Barcelona. This is actually something that I'm not a Barcelona fan by any means. I'm a Real Madrid fan. But when I heard the news, it truly saddened me, because this is a guy who, at the age of 13 years old, with a background of making jerseys for himself out of grocery bags, plastic grocery bags with the lining, with the blue and white lining. He was making shirts for himself like this with his name on the back, playing in Rosario, Argentina, in one of the poorest neighborhoods out of Rosario. At 13 years old, somebody from Barcelona is scouting around Argentina, comes knocking on his door and says, "We want to take you in for training at Barcelona." This guy at 13 years old changes his whole entire life. 21 years later with this club, the amount of accomplishment that this guy got for a club that last year, actually 2 years ago, was by far the most untruthful club there ever was for somebody like him. This was the reason why this guy wanted to leave. Now this year, you have a true president who truly cares for the club, who, yeah, some people will say he rises to power because of his son, but in addition, Lionel Messi also had a lot to do there. Does it feel like Lionel Messi was utilized to have Laporta be chosen as the president? Absolutely, it truly does, especially now knowing that he's leaving because of financial troubles at Barcelona. However, this guy made it clear, after looking at all of the signings that they have made year after year, and looking at all the money that they have to spend this year as well, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't matter how many ticket sales you have this year. It doesn't matter how much merchandise sales you have this year. You're still not going to be able to catch up to the contract that you need to offer Lionel Messi. And therefore, for the sustainability of the club moving forward for the next generations to come, you have to be economically sustainably. That way this club can live on longer, because generally speaking, I think we could see a major collapse coming to the Spanish La Liga, where a serious club of it will have to declare bankruptcy, because at this point, the money is just used ridiculously. It could be Real Madrid, it could be Atletico, it could be Valencia, any of those guys, even Barcelona. After this season, who knows? Maybe things won't go as well for them anymore, because now they don't have Lionel Messi. They don't have somebody that attracts ticket sales for them as much as he did. At this point, yeah, you had a pandemic and whatnot, but there are several other teams that also went through the pandemic and that are spending money wisely. This comes down to more of anything, management and being conscious about your fan base and proving that you truly care about this club. And frankly, the last Barcelona president, he only cared for himself. And therefore, that's why Barcelona is in the situation that they are. It's saddening. It's stressful. It's disappointing. Any final comments?
On the Barcelona front of things, not really. But I think what we should do is now we should discuss where he's going, as it's been made official where Lionel Messi will be playing next year.
Well, so it's been made official by let me just rephrase that a little bit. It's been made official that Lionel Messi has chosen PSG. However, the contract in itself has not been fully done nor signed. So there's still some pending details, but Lionel Messi has chosen go to PSG. Now, what a powerhouse PSG does have. They have signed Gianluigi Donnarumma, who has been an incredible goalie, and we all know he's probably going to be, or is already, the number one goalie in the world. Yes, Jones.
Fabrizio Romano set to join Paris Saint-Germain. Received the official contract today after talks since Thursday. Messi's ready to accept. He'll sign once final details will be fixed.
Right. So the contract's still being worked out, which is excellent. I'm glad that things are moving fast. So Gianluigi Donnarumma, which we all know, probably the best goalie in the world. In fact, maybe the best goalie in the world right now. Ashraf Hakimi signed as well, who's going to be a lethal power force for these guys out of the left wing. Sergio Ramos, who there's nothing else to say. It's just Sergio Ramos. The name itself just works out for himself. You also got Gini Wijnaldum from Liverpool, who is, we know, has been a phenomenal talent for them. Lionel Messi now, and
you say Danilo Pereira?
Danilo Pereira. I mean, this is just an incredible football team. The only thing that I will say, and I said it in an earlier article that I wrote for Couch Guy Sports, if PSG fails to accomplish Champions League glory, at this point, your team is just cursed. There's nothing else to say. It's just cursed.
I wouldn't say cursed. I would say that, again, it's one of those things where we talk about, these teams just need a little bit to develop. And I think for PSG, I think we need to give a big round of applause to PSG, because not only did they bring in those 6 names, they brought in Wijnaldum, Ramos, Donnarumma, and now probably, and more than likely, Lionel Messi, all on free transfers. So they're not paying their former clubs anything. They signed outright with PSG, which is a tremendous fee for them. Their biggest fee that they're paying is for Hakimi, which they're paying 66 mil. Other than that, I think PSG is the absolute winner of the summer transfer window so far, if you're looking at the whole European landscape.
Yeah.
And to go on top of it, one of the goalies you mentioned earlier, Areola, who was at Fulham, that came back for his loan. He's now loaned on to his loan now is going to West Ham. So he's been training with West Ham for the past couple weeks or week or so.
Right. But my point previously is, you made all these great signings. You've done some power moves and whatnot, but you still gotta you gotta trim some of the fat, because you got way too many contracts laying around on loans and whatnot. And we know that all those loans at one point accrue some sort of interest. And who's paying that interest? Is it the loanee or is it PSG? Those are still not clear. And therefore that is just far more accruals that you put into your book, that at the end of the day, once a financial audit comes across, things are probably just not going to line up. And that is exactly what happened to Barcelona. And that's why if you're PSG and you continue to do the smart things that you're doing right now with all these free agency signings that you have made, you got to trim some of the fat, and you got to do it sooner rather than later. Because God forbid that this Delta variant gets even far more powerful, and God forbid that we have a secondary round of a pandemic mode. What is PSG going to do after that? The funding, yeah, it's phenomenal at PSG, but the money eventually runs up. We've gotten it proven by Real Madrid, who was for years the biggest powerhouse in the world. Now if you're gonna sit there and tell me that the Real Madrid is still the biggest monetary powerhouse in the world, I'm gonna probably tell you to go take a hike, because at this point it's not happening. So, but anyways, I've stressed out enough. I'm sad enough, and I am so stressed that I almost feel like I really need a massage. Like I need my power gun. I need my portable, adjustable, recommended by the pros.
Dude,
gun
right
now.
When you said you needed a massage, when you said you needed a massage, I was getting ready to call Michelle for you. Be like, hey, can I help my boy out?
No, man, she's got her own things to worry about. I need my massage gun. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna recommend you. Please go to exogun.com, and at the checkout, use the code CGS10. As I said earlier in this episode and this podcast is brought to you by the folks at Exogun, great friends of the network. Make sure to check them out one time only. And make sure you use that discount code CGS10 for a 10% discount off of your order today. Moving on. Boys, the English Premier League, it's almost back. I can taste it. I can feel it in the air. I want to squeeze the English Premier League little lion emblem and be like, "Ooh, you fluffy little thing! I got you. I got your back." I feel like. Listen, last year was so good. This year, I don't even know how to describe it. This year, like, you see how I have very little hair on my head. I feel like this year I might go bald because of the stress that the English Premier League is going to bring on to me, not only by being a Manchester United fan, but just being a fan of football all in itself. I feel like there's so many unpredictable lines all together going on in this English Premier League. Chris, this is your segment. You came up with it. So take us on.
Can I just get a wellness check on Andrew? I haven't heard or seen any facial expressions from him in the past 10 minutes.
I'm hanging on. Still here.
You alive? Are you alive?
Still alive.
All right,
still alive.
Word. Perfect. That's what we like to hear. All right. So in one of my Couch Guy Sports articles, I did Premier League predictions. So basically for the Premier League, we're going to be talking about how we see the table shaking up. So for starters, we're going to start with what we think the top four will look like and what we think the four teams that will be Champions League bound and the winner of the table will be as well. Actually, you know what? Let's reverse it. Actually, why don't we reverse it? Let's go from the ground up, only because it will make it that much more better when we announce who we think the league winner will be.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I just had a little surprise rank coming up. That's all.
All right, so let's do this. Okay, so relegation. I'll start with Andrew here. Give me the three teams you think will be relegated in the 2021-2022 English Premier League campaign.
Sure, yeah. So the three teams that I currently have in the relegation zone prior to the season starting are Watford in 20th, Norwich City in 19th, and Newcastle United in 18th. I think Watford and Norwich are two newly promoted teams coming up. I think Norwich potentially could avoid relegation if they approach things differently from the last time they were in the Premier League. They kind of got swamped that time and relegated. But I think they have a decent young core with guys like Todd Cantwell and Max Aarons. So if they take a bit more of a pragmatic approach, I feel like they would have a chance. But Watford, I don't really see enough there to make it. And Newcastle, I think they've had a couple sort of close scrapes in recent years, and I just think this is the season that they don't quite manage to hang on.
All right, so Watford 20, Norwich 19, Newcastle 18.
Yep.
All right, word, perfect. Diego.
All right, so I'm gonna go with Brentford at 20th. I'm gonna go with Brighton and Hove. I'll be on at 19. And I'm gonna go with Norwich City at 18.
Any thought process behind it?
Yeah, so Brentford, even though a very good young core coming out of the secondary division of the Premier League, you're coming up, doing well and whatnot. Unfortunately, with the amount of talent that there is this year in the English Premier League, you simply didn't do enough in this transfer window to get some potential moves that will strengthen your core, and therefore you just are left out really weak against some of these teams. I mean, even Crystal Palace this year looks incredibly good with the leadership of Patrick Vieira. At this point, I just feel bad for Brentford. They fought back with everything they could to come back to the English Premier League, and unfortunately, this is just one of the toughest leagues right now to come back into. Brighton and Hove Albion, they struggled last year to keep themselves out of relegation. I think that the struggle will continue this year with some potential larger issues ahead, and therefore why I see them relegated. Who did I just pick? Oh, Norwich. Norwich, yeah, unfortunately, great team and all, but I think it's basically the same exact thing as Brentford. And I think even though you got a decent coach there with you, a coach can only do so much. A coach can't actually be on the pitch playing right now for you. And so therefore, why I see Norwich relegating as well.
All right. So for me, I have the 20th, I have Brentford. I agree with Diego there. 19, I have Watford. I agree with Andrew. I think Watford in that window they looked great last year in the EFL, but I don't know how ready they are for this talented of an English Premier League. So I think they're going to go down. I have them at 19. And then I also agree with Diego. I think Brighton, this is the time. Last couple seasons, I've expected Brighton to go down. I think now is the time that we finally see them moving down. So I have Brighton finishing 18th and being the last team relegated.
Yep.
So it's actually funny to me because I'm looking at this, and we each have two of the EFL teams going down, and then we have one staying up, but we all have a different team staying up, which kind of excited about it. Great for some good takes here. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the tier. Still live for 2022-2023. That is the three teams from 15 to 17 that have avoided relegation and are still live for the English Premier League in the next campaign after this year. This time, I'm going to start with Diego. Diego, give me your still alive for 2022-2023.
Sure. Watford, Newcastle, and Burnley. Watford, I think while they don't have much to work with, every single time that they have played in the Premier League, they always put up a phenomenal fight. That is one of the teams that, like, whenever they come back up to the Premier League, it's one of the teams that I actually pay attention to. They claw away at whatever they can in any opportunity that they can get. And therefore, why I feel like they could be one of the teams that
Andrew, Diego.
All right, you were frozen for a second, but you're back.
Yeah, you were frozen. I mean, so here's the thing: you were frozen on our screen. You're the one that presses the record button, so you're probably just gonna see our faces.
That's a good point.
I was like, are they pulling a prank on me to act like they're frozen? Like
that would be the funniest thing of all time if we actually planned that.
Which honestly, like I was looking at the screen and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna start looking down because this is just getting awkward. But anyway, so Watford, they're one of those teams that are just so stingy every single time they come up to the Premier League, and they're actually fun to watch. It's one of the teams that, like, whenever they come up, I personally watch, even though I'm not a fan of them. And I actually think that this year, with fans being allowed in the stands, their fans always seem to carry a long way for that club. And therefore, I think that they managed to claw to stay in, but it's going to be like a dramatic way that they stay in. Newcastle, they still got some talent to work with. And yeah, even though I agree with some of what Andrew has said, they have managed to stay afloat. And I think that this year they will do the same. Let's also keep in mind that the October window will also be open. And that is one of the teams that I actually see being very active in the October window. I think that there's a lot of contracts that they have coming up in which they can do trades or whatnot. And therefore one of the teams that I could see being active. And Burnley, I mean, Burnley was a pest last year any top English Premier League club. They'll continue to be a pest this year. Majority of their roster stayed in the club. So therefore, I think Burnley actually stays in the English Premier League.
So I think my only take with Watford is I think they're going to kind of be like the Fulham from last year. Like they're going to be a pest at basically anybody they play with, but I think that they're just going to be on the bad side of a bunch of games that are going to cost them the chance to stay in the Premier League next year. I think that's where I'm at with where I think Watford is for this year coming up.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think for me, still alive. 17, I have Crystal Palace. They need to move Wilfried Zaha as soon as possible. He is being so wasted there, and they're another team that I think is just that close to getting relegated. So either them or Brighton, I think, would be the pick there. I went more with Brighton because I think that that's the team that's been hanging on by a thread these past couple of seasons. So I think that they're that Crystal Palace will stay alive for 2022. At 16, I have Southampton. I think them losing Danny Ings is a big loss for them.
Huge.
Before Danny Ings left, I had them in the middle of the pack. With Danny Ings leaving, I bumped them down to still alive. I think they're good enough to still stay in the English Premier League, but I just think they're going to be a bottom of the table type of team. And then 15, Diego said it best. I have Burnley. They're just solid defensively with Pope as their goaltender. He'll single-handedly, in my opinion, keep them in the Premier League as he'll just continue to rack up the clean sheet after clean sheet for them. So my still alive, I have Crystal Palace, Southampton, and Burnley from 17 to 15.
Okay, so for me, in 17th place, I have Brentford. Now, the reason that I have that is it seems that in recent years, there's a trend where at least one team gets promoted and manages to stick around. And just based on the way that they're run off the fields, I feel like if there's a team out of the three getting promoted, they're the ones that are going to have the plan to make that happen. Now, I also, to be completely honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if they end up getting relegated. I think they have a lot of very young players who aren't really proven at the Premier League level, but just based on how they're run off the field, I'm going out on a limb and giving them a chance to stay up. Then in 16th place, I have Burnley. I think Diego said it best when he called them a pest. They're a team that sort of thrives in the gross winter months when the fixtures are coming thick and fast and other teams are banged up and injured and don't really want to be there as much. So I expect they've gotten points at that point in the season for the past couple of years, and I don't really see any reason why it would be different this year. And then in 15th place, I have Brighton. I think last year, if you want to look at I know expected goals is kind of a bit of a controversial statistic, but they consistently ranked very well in terms of that, where their expected goals indicated that they should have had better results than they did. So if you buy into it and you think that things will sort of even out over time based on the statistics, I think there's a chance that they could do decently well. I think Graham Potter is a pretty good manager for them. In the whole saga after Carlo Ancelotti left, he was one of the managers that got thrown around a lot for Everton. So I looked into him a bit, and I was actually a lot more impressed by him than I would have been before I looked into him. So I like Brighton a little bit, and I think they will stay up in 15th place.
Of course, he's got somewhat ties to Everton. Of course, Andrew likes it.
Well, it's not so much the ties to Everton as much as just like I didn't realize really who Graham Potter is and what he's about, and I sort of like the vision that he has more than I thought I did, I guess, if that makes sense.
I like it.
All
I
right.
like it.
Middle of the pack. Now we're going to rattle off. We're just going to go one by one. So we'll start with what team we think we're going to finish 14th in the table. I'll start because both of you guys have this team way too low. Norwich City. I have Norwich City finishing at 14th. This team is a whole lot better, in my opinion, than the team that we saw the last time they were in the Premier League a couple of years ago. I think they have some serious potential to be the quote-unquote Cinderella team this year. I have them at 14 just because right now, I need to see them play at the Premier League before I can bump them up. They're not, in my opinion, they're not like Leeds of last year, because Leeds was just a solid overall defensive team and would give you trouble night in and night out. I just think Norwich has made some moves. They brought in Bailey Gilmore from Chelsea on loan. I think that's a great addition for them. And they still have Timu Puki up front. I think they're better than the teams that I have below them. And for me, I think Norwich has a realistic chance at being at least in the 10 to 14 range for the entire season.
Okay.
Start with Andrew. Give me your 14.
In 14th place, I have Wolves for this season. I think they finished 13th maybe last year, so I have them in about the same spot. They've sort of turned over a new leaf with a new manager coming in after they got rid of Nuno. But I kind of just sort of see them having a similar season. I think they're good enough to stay in the league, but I don't really think they're going to click well enough in this season to push up higher and challenge for Europe again.
Diego?
So in 14th place, I actually have Southampton. I think that even though stupidly letting Danny Ings walk away, like this is just beyond stupid. I don't know what Ralph Hasenhuttl has been doing here, but like at this point, I'm like, dude, what in the hell are you doing? Like, did you fall against a wall? Like, what happened to you? But somehow, some way, Southampton was also one of those teams last year. They started actually last year. They were probably the scariest team starting off after the first 7 games. They held their lead. They were real good. They were very sharp to fight against with. I think this year they still got Theo Walcott on loan, if I'm not mistaken. So therefore, with Theo at the helm, I'm a big Theo Walcott guy. I think he's a big product, just unfortunately underdeveloped.
Permanent basis deal with Theo Walcott.
Yeah, so I think that they'll manage to stay at 14.
All right, 13. I'll go.
Okay.
You guys have them a little bit lower, but again, I just think they're an absolute pest on everybody's side that they play. I have Newcastle at 13. I think, obviously, I did potentially Norwich could finish higher than them, but I don't think Newcastle goes higher than 13. I think their ceiling is kind of there. They do have some talent in the squad. I do like Callum Wilson and then Alan St. Maximin as well. But again, both of those guys could be sold in the October transfer window, and then we could be talking about this team being completely different. But for right now, with the team the way it's constructed, I have Newcastle at 13.
Nice.
Diego, you're up.
At 13, I got Wolves. I'm ranking them higher this year because if they
that's where they finished last year. It was 13.
Well, I have them ranking higher than you guys do this year.
I haven't said Wolves yet.
Okay, fine. I have them. Okay, well, Mr. Technicalities, I have them ranked higher than Andrew does. Okay, and the only reason I do that is because they haven't lost Ruben Neves, which is going to be a big part of their midfield. If they manage to keep him at the club, he's going to be a huge part of their midfield. In addition, though, they did do some really good signings this year. They have Jose Sa as a new goalkeeper to them. Young guy, Portuguese, of course. I mean, if it's Wolves, it's got to be Portuguese. Very good guy, very, very active. And has very good reflexes. I think he's actually going to be a really solid keeper for them. But they also have John Rudy, and they also have Andreas Sondergaard, who is the Danish backup goalie for, obviously, for Denmark. They have good goalies as well. On top of that, I really like that Leander de Donker is going to be on there. João Moutinho is going to be on there. And they also have the American Owen Oresowi, who people just forget. I don't know why, but he's really good, real sharp, very fast. They have coming back this year, Raul Jimenez, after a cracked skull last year. I think having lost Raul Jimenez last year was probably the most lethal thing that they had to face because they didn't have anybody up front. Fabio Silva this year will finally be able to develop fully, with Raul Jimenez kind of being that mentor for him, and with Adama Traore as well being another forward there. I think actually Wolves this year, if coached correctly, they'll have a fighting chance to be a number 13, maybe even. I'll even say maybe even 10th. But this year, I'm just gonna say they'll stay the same at 13.
Fasciano?
In 13th place, I have Southampton. So Diego and I had Southampton and Wolves in 14th and 13th, but just flip-flopped in places. I think the Danny Ings loss is undoubtedly a big one. But like Diego said, when things were good for Southampton last season under Hasenhüttl, they were really good. And I think that sort of defensively, at least, the wheels sort of fell off when Yannick Vestergaard, the Danish international, got hurt. So if he can stay healthy, I think they can stay defensively solid and perform pretty well. I do have questions about where their goals are coming from without Ings. They still have time to maybe bring in some sort of a replacement for him, which I think would help a lot. But defensively, I think they're a solid team. So I have them in 13th.
All right, 12. Diego, you're up.
At 12, I have Crystal Palace. What can I say? Number one, Crystal Palace is under new management, ladies and gentlemen, which I think this year we'll finally get to see a Wilfred Zaha re-energized and finally driven to get some results, maybe even claw as much as they can. And honestly, with some of the middle of the pack guys that I have, in my opinion, I think they could even fight up to number 9. They have is still a very young core in their team, and when you have this young of a core versus some of the teams that are kind of going through their payroll and some of the aging factors in their lineup, I think this is where Crystal Palace can and will become an issue for a lot of teams. I'm ranking them at number 12. Realistically, I should really be ranking them at number 9, but I'm just gonna run safe for them and hope for the best for this new manager at Crystal Palace.
Mr. Fasciano.
I actually also have Crystal Palace at number 12.
Whoa.
And I would say outside of...
You guys are weird.
Yeah, we're kind of on the same page these last 3 picks. I think along with Aston Villa, they're one of the 2 teams that I'm not necessarily a fan of, that I'm most excited to see how they do this season, because with Patrick Vieira coming in, I think they have a chance to sort of harness their youth a little bit better than they did under Roy Hodgson. All due respect to him, I think he did a pretty decent job with them and keeping them solid and in the Premier League for all the years that he did. But if you look up and down the lineup, just some of the young, talented players that Crystal Palace have, like Mark Gahey, the 21-year-old center back, Eberici Eze, Michael Elise, and when you add into that guys like Christian Benteke, Jordan Ayew, Wilf Zaha, experienced guys who can get you goals and attack, I think they potentially have a recipe for success this season. I think offensively, they should be able to score against a lot of teams in this league. There's maybe a few more questions defensively, but I still think they have enough pieces, especially young pieces, to have a pretty exciting season this year.
So at number 12, myself, I have, it's funny because if you're looking at my list, it's just a big diagonal for this team. Wolves. I think they'll be a step better with Raul Jimenez on the pitch, especially if he can get back to form. I think the biggest hill they're going to have to climb this year is figuring out who is replacing Patricio. Because him going to Roma, I think they need an immediate replacement. And to be honest with you, I don't like John Ruddy and I don't like Sondergaard for them as well. So them bringing in Sa might be a good option for them, but it also, we have to wait and see, in my opinion. And also, I think they're going to have a giant distraction because there's going to be talks about Adama Traore leaving from October on. So that as well doesn't bode well for me for Wolves. All right, let's move into number 11. I'm gonna start with the man in the blue. So that's Andrew. I rhymed a little bit. So yeah.
And in 11th place, the man in the blue is picking the men in blue. I have my very own Everton Football Club in 11th place. To be honest with you, in some ways, I have absolutely no idea what to expect from Everton this season. And I kind of slotted them just based on what I thought other teams would do a little bit more than making a prediction for them personally. I think that Everton's first 6 matches of the season will be absolutely vital in terms of determining how the season goes. Rightly or wrongly, the reality is that if Rafa doesn't hit the ground running in the league, he's going to be in real trouble because patience for him is already pretty low. So in those first 6 matches, they have Southampton, Leeds, Brighton, Burnley, Aston Villa, and Norwich. So 6 teams that you want to be contending with and finishing above if you want to keep progressing and getting to the next level. So if they come out of the gate flying and do well against those 6 teams, I think there's every chance that the season could be a success at Everton. If they come out of the gate slow and struggle and lose a couple of those first matches, I think the negativity could be really, really dangerous around Everton, to be honest with you. In terms of the squad, I think some of the additions we've made should be pretty helpful. I think Damari Gray and Andros Townsend are going to be decent players that give us a little bit more flexibility in terms of attack. But the fact remains that we haven't really got the right back that we're looking for. Who knows whether or not that Denzel Dumfries move is ever going to happen, or if it's not viable financially. I'm not really sure at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think we saw last season under Carlo that if the squad is at its very best, Everton can play with some of the best teams in the league, but consistency week in and week out is a bit of an issue, and we'll see how much of an issue that is this season. But for now, I have them in 11th place.
All right. I think I'll go here because I'm on the same boat as Andrew here. The Rafa Benitez experiment is officially underway. I think them having not lost Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, I think is big for them. I also think, depending on the Moyes Keane situation, if you guys can bring him back to the fold, I think that's a good addition for you guys as well. I just think, for me, your season, you say it relies on Benitez. I think it relies on how well Jordan Pickford plays. If we see Jordan Pickford like he played in the Euros, I think this team has a chance to shoot up into the top 10. But with the way that Pickford's played in the Premier League the last couple of years, I have him at 11 for this reason. And also for other reasons, I think Rafa Benitez, I think he'll be all right for Everton this season. But I think if he's anything like the Rafa Benitez of old, it's just going to be mediocre.
All right. At number 11, I have Leeds United. The reason I'm saying number 11 here, Leeds United, rather than Everton, is because this team is just not going to cut it. You got your 3 best people in this whole entire club are Elder Acosta, Rafinha, and Calvin Phillips. Besides that, yeah, you got a good striker in Patrick Bamford, but maybe Rodrigo as well. But I feel like more needed to be done with this team during the off season. You're right with just 2 goalkeepers, which is a big mistake there. Lionel Messi could easily get a big injury, and then you're running off to Christopher Klaassen, who hasn't really had that many appearances at all. And quite frankly, I'm not sure how I feel about him. Your defense, you got a solid defense, to be honest with you. I like Luke Ayling. I like Liam Cooper. I like Diego Llorente. But besides that, I don't know. I feel like you're fighting for that 10th or 11th spot versus a very stacked English Premier League this year. And therefore it's gonna be the issue why Leeds United won't go anywhere higher than number 10 for me. Who knows? We'll see. I mean, I'm a big Marcelo Bielsa guy. I love Marcelo. I think he's a great coach. In fact, I actually wanted him to go to Everton because I think that's where he belongs. But with this team, he made something out of something last year. Who knows? Maybe this year he could impress. But for now, they're number 11 for me.
Now, I zoned out for like 30 seconds. I know who you picked, but I zoned out and literally all I heard was like it sounded like you were talking to Andrew and you were talking about Everton and you were naming guys that weren't on Everton. And I looked down and go, oh no, it's not what he's talking about.
No.
All right, number 10 for me. They just lost Jack Grealish. They're bringing a guy like Danny Ings. I'm thinking Aston Villa's in the top 10 again this year. I think they've made some good moves. I think Danny Ings, Leon Bailey, and then they got Axel Tunsby from Man United today on loan. I think it's big time for them. I think Villa finishes top 10. Diego, we'll go with you because Andrew's dying.
Yeah, we don't need him dead just yet.
Us two are too ugly for this.
Yes, that's why we had a third chair.
Andrew brings the sexiness up by at least 5 decimeters.
Absolutely.
Diego and myself.
All right, so at number 10, I have Everton. I agree with your Jordan Pickford take. I think if he's mentally all composed and Rafa Benitez can give him that confidence, Jordan Pickford would be undoubtedly the best player in this whole entire roster. It's all a thing of confidence, though, for Jordan Pickford. And Rafa Benitez is just not one of those guys that oozes that type of mentality when I think of a coach that can support a player the way that Jordan Pickford needs to be supported in this team. In addition, I worry about your defense a lot because it has changed year over year over year every single time. Now I wonder what are you going to do with Jerry Mina? I wonder what you're going to do with Ben Godfrey. I wonder if Mason Holgate will have any involvement. Knowing Rafa Benitez, this defense is going to be very different. It's probably not going to be a lot of the same names, and therefore why I worry there. Rafa Benitez is just one of those guys that isn't very good at defenses either, and this is where you guys will be heavily exposed. Secondary to that, midfield is questionable. I love Allen and I love Doucouré, but besides that, if something happens to James Rodriguez, once again, you don't have a creative piece. Once again, Rafa Benitez fails to add a creative piece. Yeah, you got Fabian Delph, who continues to say, "Oh, this will be another season that I will be great." Oh yeah, no, I'll be great this season, dude. You haven't been great in 5 seasons. Just shut up already.
Andrew
they should accept any bid for him. By the way, like if any club makes a bid for Fabian Delph, please accept that.
Yeah, just like
he's done nothing positive at Everton.
Just like honestly, if I was Everton, I would have sold him to Brentford. I would have been like, here, give me 100,000. That's it. Go ahead. Take it.
I would take it. I would take it just to get him off the wage bill.
Dude, exactly. Just get him off the bill.
I'll give you him for free, please. Take him. We don't want him.
Lastly, okay, you got Andros Townsend from Crystal Palace. That's a great addition. I just wonder how dynamically he will work with Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who play a faster pace game that he does. I think he will actually struggle hardcore. And Rafa Benitez is another one of those guys that isn't good when keeping guys in shape. He's just not good. He either overworks them or underworks them, but never in between. It happened in Real Madrid. It's happened in Newcastle. It's happened anywhere he goes. It happened in Liverpool when he first started.
Let's talk about that.
He overworked a bunch of the guys, and therefore why it took a little bit for Liverpool to finally be successful under his management. I hope, and another thing is we all know the past between James Rodriguez and Rafa Benitez. Yeah, it seems like they're willing to crush it and set it aside, but the game speaks for itself. once the game starts happening and James Rodriguez starts going to the bench because Rafa Benitez didn't like how one pass was done, guys, it's game over for Everton. The creativity is all gone. So therefore, I don't know. I worry a lot about the mentality that Rafa Benitez has coming into this club. I wonder if he's gonna take a step back and realize that he needs to let the players do their work, or if he's just gonna be the same maniac that he's been already and be just a controlling freak. So realistically, Everton does have a good club though.
Andrew, would you like to give your 10th team before Diego finds another reason that could go wrong with Everton's season again?
Sorry, and I'm not trying to harp into Everton by any means, but I'm being realistic, and I've seen Rafa Benitez manage before, and he is one of my least favorite coaches in the world.
The kid's already scared enough. Stop scaring him more.
Frankly, I think my expectations are pretty low right now.
Yeah,
that's just the reality of the situation.
And as they should be.
There's a lot of negativity around the club right now, and I think unfortunately there's a chance that this could be a very tough season. But my 10th place team,
Fasciano. Come on, 10th place, let's go.
My 10th place team, Leeds United. They finished 9th last season, I think. So I have them taking one little step backwards, but I still think Marcelo Bielsa, when he's doing his thing, he can get the best out of them. They just approach the game so differently to any other team in the league with how much they run. And I think it just gives them a little X factor that is just tough to solve. You don't solve that Leeds United puzzle like you solve the other teams in the league. So regardless of who they have in their squad, I think they have some very good players in there as well. Jack Harrison, I like a lot. I think he could have another good season. But yeah, I just think as long as Marcelo is doing his thing and clicking, I think they have a decent chance of being comfortably mid-table.
That was beautiful music, by the way. That was just that was just musical.
So that concludes the middle of the pack. Let's move on to the quote unquote the contenders, the 7 through 9 spot that will potentially contend for Europa League spots next year. So number 9. Actually, you know what? Let's just do all 3 together. So we'll do Diego. Diego, go first. Give me 9 through 7.
All right. At number 9, Arsenal. At number 8, West Ham. And at number 7, Tottenham. Why am I saying Arsenal at number 9? I don't think Mikel Arteta has what it takes to manage this team. You have a decent core. I just don't think you have what it takes to manage this team. You still haven't figured out what to do in the puzzle up front when you have Lacazette and Pierre Aubameyang. You haven't figured that out. It's been an issue that's been ongoing for years now since you've been at that club, and you haven't figured it out. Also, you sold Martin Odegaard, which was probably the single stupidest mistake you could have done. You need a hand to stay at your club. You need a hand to stay there. He was your creative piece. You don't have anything there. You did sign Albert Sambi Lokonga, which huge fan of him. I think he's another great Belgian coming up. I just don't think that when you have a midfielder like Willian, who's still incredibly way below expectations at this club, and Lucas Torreira and Joseph Willock, along with Lokonga, I just don't know how you're going to line up. And on top of that, what are you going to do with Martinelli? What are you going to do with Nicolas Pepe? I don't know. I think you have a decent core, but Mikel Arteta is just not the guy to figure this core out. And therefore, this could be the season where he might be actually the first manager to be sacked, to be honest with you. I think he could.
Yikes. Well, that's a big take for me, who, I have Mikel Arteta winning Premier League Manager of the season. So I'm sorry to crush your dreams, but I just I don't know. It could go either way. I mean, if he succeeds, then that's wonderful. But he didn't succeed last year. He needed Martin Odegaard. Martin Odegaard came into this team, revived the core there, and was able to give him that drive in the midfield to create an offensive game. Now you don't have him. Okay, you brought in Lokonga, but I'll give my thoughts on Arsenal in just a moment. But I'll move into my contenders. At 9, I have Tottenham. There's just too many question marks with them. from top to bottom. Distractions off the pitch is going to cost this team until they figure out what Harry Kane is doing moving forward. At 8, I have West Ham. They were one of the more surprising stories last year. Declan Rice is a big reason why West Ham's defense was so great last year.
Yep.
I think they're going to continue to add. I think the winter transfer window is going to be the spot for them. And they're also playing in the Europa League this year. So I think that's going to cost them a little bit when it comes to the Premier League. So I think they finished at 8th. And at 7th, guys, come on. Leeds United, man. We got to put some respect on the name. They were tough to even play against last year. BS's club from top to bottom. They're just tough. They're tough. They're rough. They're great defensively. I think Messi LEAVES, their 21-year-old goaltender, is going to take a big step forward this year. I think Patrick Bamford's going to end up in top 5 in goals scored for the league. I think they're going to continue to be one of the best defensive teams. I think they just fall short of the Europa League. I think they finished 7th this year.
Okay.
Fasciano?
All right. In 9th place, I have West Ham. I think they'll have another solid season under David Moyes. I think maybe not quite reach the highs that they hit last year, but top half of the table, mid-table, I see them being pretty safe there. In 8th place, I have Aston Villa. Jack Grealish is a big loss, no doubt about it, but I think they've reinvested that money very, very well. They've brought in some really good players, I think. Leon Bailey, Danny Ings. They brought in some midfield help. And I think they'll have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, to be honest with you, with Grealish moving on for greener pastures, supposedly. They're a team that I have had a lot of fun watching since they've been promoted to the Premier League, and I would like them to keep doing well. So I think they'll finish 8th. And then 7th, as of today, I have Tottenham in that 7th spot. Depending on what happens with the Harry Kane situation, like you said, Chris, I would probably bump them down potentially a spot or 2, depending on whether he stays or goes. But I think Nuno Espirito Santo is not the flashiest name, but I think he could do a solid job at Tottenham. I think it's a good change of direction after the disaster that was the Mourinho experiment there. So, yeah, we'll have to see how those questions end up, because obviously Harry Kane's their biggest profile player. So if he's gone, that is a big change and would hurt them. But as of right now, I have them in 7th place.
All right, let's move into the 2 teams that we think will qualify for the Europa League next season. I'll start just because I want to get the Arsenal distaste out of my friend Diego's mouth over there. At six, I'm going to go Leicester. Brendan Rodgers has to be kicking himself over how the past 2 seasons have ended for them. They were so good both the last 2 years, sitting top 4 the majority of the season, and then on the last day to just lose it. It stinks. Also, with names like James Maddison and Yuri Tielemans potentially being on the move, them contending for the Champions League might be out of the question this year. I think, don't get me wrong, Kasper Schmeichel is good enough to keep this team in the top 6, but they could easily take the biggest drop of 2021, 2022, in my opinion. And then at 5, I have Arsenal finishing at 5. The big reason why I think this team – so when I wrote this, I said Arteta needs to have this team better to go for a run this year, or he could easily be getting the pink slip. I agree with you 100%. I just think this team is going to be sneaky good all year. They have nothing else to worry about this year. They don't have to worry about the Europa League. They have to worry about the Premier League. And I think when their mind is just set on the Premier League, I think they're going to be fantastic. Arsenal's biggest thing in the past couple of seasons is they've started off super, super slow, and they picked it up. If they can get off to a hot start, we've seen how well this team can play in the second half of the season. If they can get off to a hot start where they're sitting in either 5th or 6th place at the midpoint of the season, I think they continue and they'll stay in 5th place. And I think Arsenal will be playing Europa League football again next year. But I think 5 and 6, Arsenal and Leicester City for me. Let's go with Andrew, because I can see Diego's brain stewing with some insult that he wants to give me.
Yeah, I don't have an insult. Don't worry.
I also have Arsenal and Leicester City in 5 and 6, but I have Arsenal in 6th place. I think that point that you made about the fact that really one competition for the season is the Premier League is a key one. I think that Arsenal is a club that has had a lot of distractions around them, I think it's fair to say. And I feel like that sort of lack of secondary competitions may help with that a little bit. I also am a big fan of the Ben White move that they made. They had to pay a premium to get him, but I think he can help a lot with their center back pairing and sort of giving a more regular center back pairing to find which one actually works for them. On paper, Ben White and Gabriel Malaga sounds pretty decent compared to what they've had in the past couple of years. So I think that's an improvement for sure in an area that they definitely needed to improve in. And they have all sorts of flashy attacking talent: Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe, Bukayo Saka as well. I think will have a really big year this year. So if they can put it together, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to finish in the top 6 and qualify for Europa League. And then Leicester City, I have them in 5th place. In recent years, they've been the gold standard for teams outside of the so-called Big 6 or top 6, whatever you want to call it. And I expect that to continue this season. I don't really see them challenging the 4 teams that I think we'll probably all have in our top 4, but I do sort of see them as the best of the rest. But to Chris's point, I do think it's another important year for Brendan Rodgers. We need to see something besides that little downhill slide at the end of the season this year. And I think that some of the transfers they brought in will help with that. I think they made some pretty impressive signings. Soumare from Lille is one in particular that I like, who I think will help a lot in midfield. But yeah, I just think they're not quite in the top tier of teams in the Premier League this season, but I think they're just about best of the rest, in my opinion.
All right, Diego, let's go.
All right. So at number 6, I have Aston Villa. I think they have a huge chip on their shoulder. Yeah, they lost Jack Grealish, but it's clear the direction that this team is going, and it's clear the message that coach just sent. Yeah, we lost our boyhood guy who grew up in this club. We got to move on. And the way that he delivered that we got to move on message was by bringing big names into this club and big help and experience into this club. Now you're looking at a club that has Emiliano Martinez, arguably one of the up-and-coming goalies in the world right now. You got Matty Cash in defense, Tyrone Mings, who we saw how good Tyrone Mings was in Euro 2020, a solid center back. You got experience coming back into the club with Ashley Young, who honestly, he wasn't so bad at Inter Milan. It was time for him to move on from Manchester United, and now he's coming back into the English Premier League to compete again in Aston Villa. That is huge. You got a very young Axel Tuanzebe who was just made the transfer on this week on loan. Axel Tuanzebe is one of those guys that well developed very well at Aston Villa. It's going to be the example of Jesse Lingard developing at West Ham. I really see that coming. You got Douglas Luiz in midfield. You have Trezeguet. You got Nakamba, which, by the way, Nakamba has the best name there is in the world. Marvelous. I mean, what a name. Marvelous. He better be.
It's a marvelous name.
It's a marvelous man. Come
on. I also loved Emiliano Buendia. That was a huge signing for them out of Norwich City. He's going to be a major improvement into this club. I love their forward, Ollie Watkins, Leon Bailey, as we have mentioned, Danny Ings. I mean, this team has a lot of components working really well. And on top of that, it's a very young core, but a very physical young core. And you got to need that physicality coming into this year, especially when you're playing teams right off the bat, like Manchester City, Manchester United, Leicester, Liverpool, and all those guys. You need to be physical and you need to outpace these guys in order to be able to be competitive against these guys. At number 5, I have Leicester City. I agree with much of what's been said. Brendan Rodgers needs to get out of that funk of starting in the top 4 and then at last sliding down. I think, however, if Leicester City can manage to create some really good acquisitions come the October window, I actually think that Leicester City, if they do that, they can actually be in the top 4. The only reason they're not 4 for me is because there are a couple other teams that I think will do far better this year than Leicester City will this year. I do think they still have a very good core. I agree with what Jones said. Kasper Schmeichel is going to keep him there in the fight. He's been a phenomenal goalie for them. He was a great goalie for them in the Euro 2020 this year. He showed what his capabilities are with Denmark. I like Castagna. I like Pereira. I actually really like James Maddison and Bertrand. I think one that continues to be heavily under-talked is Hamza Shouhouri. He's been a phenomenal acquisition for them. I like Somori as well. I think that was a great signing for them. Kileki Hinacho is going to be a huge thing for them as well. Jamie Vardy will probably have a chip on his shoulder. This will probably be the season where he's going to want to prove that his value is there. Because who knows, maybe next year or the year after that, he could move on from Leicester City and move on, much like Jack Grealish did out of Aston Villa. So I think the October window is the best opportunity for Leicester City to improve. But until they don't do that, I think they belong at number 5.
All right. Top 4. Here we go. All right, friends. I'll start off. We're gonna go Jones, Diego, Andrew, just how I have it written. At number 4, I have the reigning champion, Manchester City, finishing number 4. And here's why. Don't get me wrong. They look a lot better than they did last season. I understand that 100%. What's the focal point for Manchester City going to be this year? Champions League. That's right. You said it, Diego. I saw the look in your face. It's the only thing that Pep hasn't won with them. I don't think they really winning their 4th title in the last 5 seasons would be a great feat. Don't get me wrong, but I think they're more focused on winning the Champions League this year. So I think we're going to see them go all out in the Champions League. And for some of their matches in the Premier League, I think they're going to struggle a little bit, especially when they play Chelsea, who's had their number over the past couple of seasons. So for me, I have City finishing at 4 because I truly, truly believe that they're going to focus heavily on Champions League rather than the Premier League this year. At 3, I got Liverpool. Plethora of injuries on the defense last year. Still managed to finish in 3rd. They're going to be a lot better than they were last year. Don't get me wrong, but the 2 teams I have ahead of them, I think, are just they put themselves in positions to be much better than they were a season ago, and I think that Liverpool's going to be a solid contender. I just don't see them going over the hump this season. At 2, I'm Manchester United. This team, and Diego can agree with me 100% when I said this. This team will go as far as Ole Gunnar will allow them to go. This team is too talented from top to bottom. They bring in a guy like Jadon Sancho to play with some of their offensive weapons up front. Then you bring in Rafael Varane, a fantastic center back that has been a part of so many championship-winning teams in his time at Real Madrid. You pair him up with Harry Maguire. I think it's a good pairing between them. They did all the right things in the summer transfer window. Now, Ole has to get him over the hump, and I just don't know truly if he can do that. Number 1, you guessed it, the reigning Champions League champions, Chelsea FC, is going to win the Premier League this season. We were excited about last year. We were excited about all the moves they made last year. I said they were a year away from winning the Premier League title. They win the Champions League last year after the Frank Lampard experiment didn't work with that team. They brought in Thomas Tuchel. It was a great addition for them. They just signed Romelu Lukaku, which is a fantastic signing for them. I think that just made this team that much dangerous. I think the Champions League was great last year for them. I think this Premier League title is going to be even better for them. I have Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel hosting up the trophy when it's all said and done.
All right. At number 4, I have Liverpool. I agree with much of what Jones actually said about his own team.
Which never happens, by the way. I want that on the record.
I do think that having Virgil van Dijk is going to be huge for you guys. It's great to have him back, but I think it's good to have him back on paper. And there's a big difference as to having him back on the pitch. I wonder if he will be the same exact player that we've seen before after this injury. I think we've seen a lot of players up to his level come back from this injury and not be the same. Actually have a lot of traumatic experiences right here. And those mind games go a long, long way. Not to brag about Colombia or anything here, but we all know how good Radamel Falcao was at Atletico Madrid. We all know that he was probably the most lethal striker at the time when it came to Spanish La Liga. Once that injury happened, that guy was never the same. Never, ever, ever again. We saw when he came to Manchester United, he was always scared to even challenge for the ball. When he went to Galatasaray, it took him a long time to get comfortable again to go attack for the ball. Even when he played for the Colombian national team, he was scared to attack for the ball. I almost feel like the same exact thing is going to happen here for Virgil because he's going to be traumatized by this injury. Not to say that it's not a traumatizing injury. I personally have had it, and I personally have never played the game the same before with the same drive that I had. I do think that adding Konate was a huge move and a very, very smart move here by Jurgen Klopp because then it helps to realize that if Virgil's not up here, I can bring in Konate and put him into that position and allow him to do his thing and still not sacrifice as much as I need to sacrifice as you did last year when you had Kabak and all these other people that you brought in the October window. I think your big issue, however, is it's definitely around the your front. I mean, last year you couldn't figure out if you wanted Diogo Jota or Roberto Firmino over each other. When you did,
I knew which one I wanted. Jurgen Klopp did not. I knew which one I wanted.
You knew, but I mean, at the same time too, though, when Diogo Jota was given the opportunities, yikes! And then at Euro 2020, huge yikes. The guy was like, just be the water boy, dude. You can't mess up water. That's for Liverpool. I agree with Manchester City take, and I will say this. I think for Manchester City, you are so talented right now that when you have this star-studded teams, they always fail because of one thing and one thing only: ego. And I don't think Pep Guardiola knows how to control ego in the locker room. Therefore, there will be a lot of issues in that locker room coming up. You have Jack Grealish with a huge ego of knowing that he's good enough. Yeah, he carries himself in a very humble manner. But when you're fighting Kevin De Bruyne versus Jack Grealish, who's going to be the most egotistic? Personally, for me, it's Kevin De Bruyne. But again, we'll see how that works out.
That's a big take. Kevin De Bruyne has an ego.
He does. He does. And we saw it in Euro 2020 when he played for Belgium. He does. I think at number 2, I'm going to go with Chelsea. I think their main focus this year is the Champions League. They build that team to be Champions League driven, and they build that team to be able to contend against Manchester City in the case that Manchester City makes it into the final of the Champions League. I like the Lukaku signing. I think him coming back is a wonderful thing for Stamford Bridge. I really like how Tuchel has managed this team. I just think that their vocal point is going back to back, going for Champions League. And then Manchester United, probably at first, but to be quite honest, I agree with you. They'll probably end up at number 2. I'm going with them at number 1 because I think that their sole focus this year is finally just getting that trophy again for English Premier League. They build a very good team with Jadon Sancho, Bruno Fernandes, and all that around. I just think unless Ollie can get out of his fucking way.
Andrew, can you believe this guy?
Listen,
Nah,
I got
you got to back your team. I kind of like it, honestly.
I got
I
every
backed
reason,
my team to a certain extent.
but I got every reason to believe that this is the year that Manchester United could win the Premier League. I think looking at the perspective that Manchester City and Chelsea have both built their team around the Champions League, it is
I
a
don't think
distraction
so,
at this
though.
point. It
I don't
is a
think so.
distraction at this point. If Chelsea build it around English Premier League, they're the clear winners. For me, they're the clear winners. There's no other choice. But I really think that they're Champions League driven this year, and I think for the rightful reasons. When you got N'Golo
But they
Kante,
won
who's
the
at
Champions League last year. Why wouldn't they be focusing on the Premier League? Is
why
my only
wouldn't
thing.
why wouldn't they want to go back to back?
Do you fucking see the talent that City has brought in? Did you see the talent that
Do
PSG has
you
brought
see-
in? Those are two better teams already than
But
you
do
right
you
now.
also see the
Overall.
talent that Chelsea's got? You're
Yeah,
gonna
no, I
sit
do
there.
100%.
You're gonna sit
That's
there
why
and
I
tell
have
me.
them winning the Premier League.
But you're gonna sit there and tell me that N'Golo Kante is probably not the best City M there is between those three.
No, of course not.
Okay, so then that is a big piece of that whole entire game when it comes to Champions League. If you have a good center defensive mid that can control the whole attacking game of things, it doesn't matter who you have in the other team. That is a huge piece, and that is a huge distraction. And N'Golo Kante can make a lot happen here for Chelsea, especially when you have. And
Who
another
won
thing
the Premier
too.
League title.
And another thing too. Let's keep in mind when you look at the offense of Chelsea, they are by far the most physically built to attack any defense out of those three. You got Lukaku, who's a freaking truck and a half, coming at you. All right.
Looks like Mark Henry.
You got a quick Timo Werner.
I love Romelu Lukaku so much.
You got a very quick Timo Werner. You got a sneaky fast Kai Havertz. You got a very good Mason Mount. And on top of that, you have a very good Christian Pulisic, who has shown the level of talent he's got. I'm sorry, but they are focused on Champions League and Champions League only. I agree. PSG.
I think you're wrong.
I think the PSG foundation that they have going on is great. I think Manchester City has a great foundation, but I think overall, those three teams are battling out for Champions League. I don't think they're focused on their center league. If they are focused, like I said, Chelsea will win it all. I agree with you, but I think the target this year for Manchester United is finally just getting at least one sort of silver piece and getting the English Premier League. If it's not the English Premier League, then it's probably, I don't know, the fucking Carabao Cup. Just win something, Manchester United. Just win something. I don't care. Just win the Tootsie Roll Cup for all I care. Just get something.
It just feels like a giant cop-out for me on your end, though, because you're saying
But I'll say
you're
this.
Saying that you think United's going to win the league. But again, if Chelsea's main focus isn't that, then Chelsea's going to win this easily. It's
because they're both really good teams this year, dude. They're both really good offensive pieces this year. And on top of that, this is the year where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can finally change the lineup for Manchester United. We can finally see Manchester.
Do you actually have faith in this man?
Can you let me finish? It'd be great.
Do you actually have faith in this man?
I have faith that this is the year where finally the players have been able to be so vocal enough that Ole is starting to realize that he needs to listen more to the players rather than some dumbass Glazer who doesn't even know what a football looks like to begin with. Okay. And not having to listen to Ed Woodward at least either. Now he can actually listen to the players and the players only. This is the year where you can finally see Manchester United playing a 4-3-3 formation, maybe even a 4-4-2 formation, going back to the days where they were actually a lethal force to be reckoned with, rather than this 4-3-1-2 formation or these other experiments that this chemist thinks that he can get away with, that he can't get away with at all. This is the year that 4-3-3 actually does happen, because you have Jadon Sancho, who is by far the most creative, technically driven winger there is in the whole entire Premier League right now. The guy showed it at Borussia Dortmund, and the only reason Erling Haaland is Erling Haaland this year, this time around, is because of Jadon Sancho, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. When Jadon Sancho wasn't around for Borussia Dortmund shut down in the Champions League. It is what it is. Bruno Fernandes is an incredible creative piece in the midfield. And on top of that, you still have Paul Pogba. Whether he leaves or not, that's an issue to be defined. But if he leaves, we still are in the hook for Cavaminga, for Ruben Neves, a bunch of other names that have been thrown around that still will be a great fit for this club. Creatively, Manchester United does have a very good core. And I can't just not give them the credit that they could potentially win the English Premier League this season. They have the potential to do it.
Well, I think I'm going to go off the record here when I say this real quick before I let Andrew finally talk amongst the two of us. Is that I already called the Manchester United was going to win the Champions League before PSG signed Lionel Messi and all this stuff. I'm going to stand by it. I think United gets the hardware this year, but I don't think it's the Premier League. I actually think they're going to win the Champions League this year. My honest opinion.
United to win the Champions League.
That is my prediction right now. Yes.
If that happens, I will call divorce and marry you instead. How about that?
It's on the record. Oh Jesus!
All right, like
I now pronounce you Jones and Diego. Andrew, finally,
yeah.
This is your stage to talk, please.
Okay.
Diego, mute ourselves, please.
Well, in fourth place, I have Liverpool Football Club.
You're just a hater.
There's probably some truth to that, to be fair, but I just think that this season I think they'll be comfortably in the top 4, but I think this season is a little bit more about getting their house in order and figuring out where their big guys are after coming back from injury, and sort of gelling together as a team again. And then maybe next season you look towards really making a real title challenge again. I think they'll be in contention in the Cups and Champions League and top 4. So I don't think it'll be a bad season for Liverpool. I just think there's a bit of maybe a growing process after so many injuries like that they had last season. In third place, I have Manchester United. I think Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane are 2 very scary additions. My question is, can Solskjaer go toe-to-toe with Tuchel and Pep over a 38-game season? And I'm not quite convinced that he can at this point in time. Maybe he can, and maybe he can prove me wrong.
Well, neither can Rafa Benitez.
I made no such claims. I agree with you on that one.
Sorry, we're laughing out. We're mad.
Yeah, this has been a contentious episode. Yeah, so I've United in third. I think they'll push Chelsea and City, but I just see Chelsea and City having a little bit more of that X factor. I think United.
I just want to remind you too that in the friendly, it wasn't so friendly, and we got 4 goals on your ass.
I am not saying that Everton are better than Manchester United. I'm just saying that Chelsea and City are, I think.
You got me riled up.
Diego,
you got me riled up.
Diego, don't forget, this is also the same kid that was barely excited when Calvert-Lewin hit the header to tie the game against Manchester United.
I know. Jesus.
All right, Diego, let's shop. Let this get finished. Andrew, what do you have to What an episode.
I think Manchester United have made very important strides in the right direction, and I think in the next couple of years they'll be right back up at the top contending for titles. I just don't quite see it this season. And as of August 8th, at this point in time, I have Manchester City in second place. Going back to the whole Harry Kane thing, if he ends up going there, I think I would reconsider. But as of right now, Romelu Lukaku at Chelsea swings the balance of the Premier League in their favor, in my opinion. That man is absolutely lethal. In my time watching Everton, I have never seen another player who can just pick up the ball and get you a goal out of nowhere like Lukaku can. I think he is an incredibly special combination of finishing, pace, strength, football IQ. I think he's a tremendous player, and I think now that he's coming back to the Premier League and sort of stepping up onto the biggest stage, he's going to get a lot more respect for being really in the top level of strikers in world football right now. The other thing is, I think the only manager in the Premier League who's shown consistently recently that he can game plan for Pep and Man City is Thomas Tuchel. I mean, Chelsea beat City 3 straight times in 3 very important games down the stretch last season in the FA Cup, the Premier League, and the Champions League final. They're both, bless you, they're both phenomenal managers. I'm not saying Tuchel's a better manager than Pep, but I think stylistically he showed that he has some pretty nice answers for the way that Manchester City wants to play last season. I think when Chelsea were on fire under Tuchel, really the one knock on them was that there were times when their attacking players didn't quite finish as clinically as you would have liked because they were so solid defensively, so solid in midfield with guys like Conte and Jorginho. I think Romelu Lukaku coming in fixes that problem and gives them what they need to win the title as of right now. Again, that could potentially change if Man City bring in Harry Kane and get that centerpiece center forward to build around. But as of right now, with where the rosters are at, I think Lukaku gives Chelsea the edge.
I'm just glad you've seen the light. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, Romelu Lukaku, I think, is one of my favorite players. And I really think that him coming back to the Premier League right now is the right time for him to do that in his career. And I think he's going to open a lot of eyes in terms of just how talented he really is.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%. But I also thought that they were going to win the title before they signed Lukaku anyways. But I think that's just an addition on top of it. Diego? Did you have one final thing that you wanted to say?
I don't like either one of you.
Whoa. Hold the fucking phone. I just said you guys are going to win the Champions League. And you're like, I don't like either one of you. Fucker. As a matter of fact, I'm currently looking at the Champions League odds, and I'm going to go all in on Manchester United at this very moment. But I need to find the odds.
We just talked earlier in the episode about spending wisely, and this is why Barcelona is failing. And this is what you're doing? Is this what you're doing?
Yeah,
Listen, last but not least, we're going to end this episode on a good note. Revolution. 4 stars, baby. 4 stars. Do not sleep on the New England Revolution because we're coming for it. The quest for the cup is here, and we're going for it. 4 stars. Matt Turner, Tajan Buchanan, Carlos Gil, Gustavo Ball. 4 stars, baby. Let's go. Revolution to the moon. With that said, it is episode 46 of the Yellow Card Podcast. Check us out on any platform out there. YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, you name it. We have it. Check us out on Twitter. Make sure that you're following Couch Guys Sports as well. And sooner or later, we will be back on that Twitch channel because this year, the emotions are going to be flying very, very high. The content's going to be phenomenal. So be on the lookout for the Twitch channel. Until then, episode 46 is over. We'll see you guys back for episode 47.